One of the things that have been giving me a headache is this tool called Power BI. Most analysts will tell you that the world has discovered this tool by Microsoft called Power BI, and everybody else just wants to do it, use it. To refresh it, it's a bit of a headache. Probably in this video, I just wanted to air out the frustration that I was going through in updating this Power BI that was giving me a headache in a long time. For those who don't know, what is Power BI and why is the whole world buzzing about business intelligence tool? Power BI, like Tableau and others, ClickView, they are just business intelligence products that takes the strain. Back in the days we used to be forced to do stuff in Excel, and then you fight with Excel so much, and you had limited capability because Excel could not do other things. So comes this other thing called a cube, which normally you used to only access the cube if you had active coding skill or you have a strong data team to build you a cube. And then with a cube you can be able to access your data. So Power BI and then comes into it comes in for people who are not hectically technical, but also at the same time deliver good answers to the business quickly. So that's where business intelligence tool come in. What do? They create a cube using, you can use it like in Excel. A cube being, if you had 10 rows, you have 10 rows and then you have 20 columns. A row would be myself, would be information about me. One column about my eyes, my skin color, how tall I am, all those different columns. And then each row is a different individual. That's just the normal table. But if you put it in, that's a normal table that you can either show it as a table because you only have 10 people. It's easy to do it as a table. But when you get to getting more than 1 million people, then Excel cannot, handle more than, I think, 1 million and 1.5 million rows. You can only go to the certain thing. Then you have to move it into a pivot. But that pivot does not sit, you can't see the data itself, but you can store a data in a pivot. And that pivot makes use of what you call an Excel cube to store the data. So where you previously have the luxury of saying what is a person's hair color, what is whatever, all those columns, height, can they sing or not, stuff like that. Once data goes into the cube, you might not necessarily get the luxury to see the data itself. You just have to see as much as you are slicing. So in it you can say, give me males between the ages of 35 and 40, and then if I am in that age bracket then I'll show up. If you say males between 20 and 25, if I'm in that bracket then I'll show up. If I'm not, then I won't show up. So that's the beauty of a cube. But the problem is storing data in a cube in Excel sometimes becomes very, very, very slow. And depending on how your computer or how your RAM and your CPU speeds are like, that Excel workbook might not even open up at all. Because of the limitations of Excel, it's a beautiful tool, but because of its limitation comes the space where there's a need for this tool called business intelligence tool. So what they do is they create same thing called cubes, but they don't render it in Excel anymore because they already know the limitation of Excel. So what they do is you'll see this fancy looking graphs in their workspaces. That's where they render this cube onto those workspaces. So they are there's nothing wow about knowing Power BI or Tableau or ClickView as far as I'm concerned. What is wow is getting the tool or giving that tool to the hands that knows the business. Then you get wow results. In order for us to understand it, if you have a supercar McLaren, Lamborghini, you name them. If you have a supercar or a thin car, like my daughter calls them, if you have a thin car and you give it to me, and I'm going to be driving at 20 kilometers an hour, that thin car is as good as my normal car that I normally drive. To me and to anybody else, it serves no purpose. There are hidden gems that you can actually hit and discover quickly by making use of business intelligence tools. This is why you hear the whole world going goo goo gaga over business intelligence tools, because they are like fast supercars, thin cars. They can enable your business to run actually quite faster and then get to the results faster. But all of that is dependent not on the IT team only, not only onto the business, but it depended on somebody else who is able to do the IT, who is able to know the IT tech side of things. Even if they don't know 100%, they know enough to get the supercar going, and that person must know a lot about business. So in that way, if you are tracking sustainable development goals, for instance, that person would know what data to go find and then put it in a cube and how to put it in for you to start tracking sustainable development goals, for instance. It is not the tool, but it's the person that's got the know-how about the business strategy, plus knows where to get the data itself. Most of the people, we are quick to start to know about the business strategy, but if you ask them to say, yeah, we actually want to know what's the impact of one of the sustainable development goals is about equality, women and equality. And then he said, tell us about the women customers that we're having and the rate of underprivileged people that we are now serving. And if you don't know where to get that data, you will just be a waffling senior manager who's waffling person that is going to be of no use. But if you know who to talk to, where your team should be going, it becomes easier for you. That's where the power of business intelligence tools come in. There are different ways of updating these tools. There is one, you get a dedicated server that takes, for ease of conversation, Excel workbooks from multiple people. It puts them together. It takes Excel workbook 1, Excel workbook 2, all the way to Excel workbook 1000. And then it says, okay, this one I can see they have an ID number here. It's the same ID number here. This one, that works Excel workbook, it doesn't have ID number, but it has telephone numbers, cell phone numbers. So this one cell phone numbers plus that cell phone numbers. That whole relationship between tables, I think they call it relational database, because it's tables that are related to each other. And then when you have the relational workbook and then you put it all together, that they come together in one, they create what we call a cube. And then if you source all this information, you put it together into a cube, and the whole cube comes from Rubik's Cube. Do we have a Rubik's Cube here? What happened to the Rubik's Cube? The Rubik's Cube, because every time you turn it around, you see a different color. Oh, this is blue, this is yellow, this is whatever. So from that Rubik's Cube creates a cube, because you have different type of information on different side. So one way of updating Power BI is on a server, you create a cube. Second way is you just go manually, you go fetch things yourself. If you get maybe data source 1 from Excel, data 2 from SQL, data 3 from XML, whatever, and then you allow Power BI to create a cube on your behalf. That's where the mid-technical people would do. Even if you're still advanced technical, you can still take that thing if your business doesn't want to spend time on a cube. The other one is the hybrid, where you would get information maybe on SQL Server from different sources, and you push it into Power BI so that Power BI can create a cube for you. So instead of you creating a cube on SQL, you pull data on SQL and you let Power BI create a cube on your behalf so that you can analyze the cube. That one is the one that I'm doing here. So I'm going to show you that one here. on how is it that it's frustrating me. So first things first, we're just gonna jump the Excel side of things. In fact, I'm gonna show you this thing that is called, when it's together like this, it's called SSIS, SQL Server Integration Services, SSIS. When it's alone, it's called DTS. If people are still talking DTSs, they've been in IT for a long time. You may just know that. And then the other ones is called ETLs. It doesn't matter what name it is. It's all about migrating data from one source to the next. That's all that it is. So in this case, I'm just gonna hit it halfway. Maybe we'll do a full video on how do you set up this DTSs and ETLs. Remember, I'm a financial analyst. I'm not a data person. So I try not to spend too much time on this, even though I know how to write, data language, and I can do data analysis, but I don't want to spend too much time on this thing, okay? Because at the end of the day, I want to show you what does it mean on financial analysis, okay? Maybe somebody else can do a better job in explaining the data and what. So this case, this morning I made a dumb thing. So we are creating we are making use of a OneDrive folder. Let me show you what the folder looks like. So yeah, we have this workbook where we are putting in our budget on it. And when it's screened like this, it means somebody else also has got a copy on the side. When it's like this, it's available all the time on my thing. So I had forgotten to come down here in the morning and switch on my OneDrive so that it can sync. Like here, can you see it synced 10 minutes ago? So somebody worked on it 10 minutes ago. Then, stupid me, I ran this whole thing to import that Excel workbook onto this side and take it to Excel to try to so that I can create a cube for Power BI, and it was not online, and it was a horrible thing. So since this is not the how to set up a DTS type of thing, but what you do is, if like people that help me out, I would help them set this thing up if they're not technically strong. One guy, I mean, he went to New Zealand. He's now in New Zealand. He was technically strong, so he would set up all of this thing, and he did quite a good job in helping me out set up most of the thing. So he would run all of this thing and pull in data. So for every step, when it's done, it becomes a green tick box, and then once all of them are done, then you can start importing into Power BI. But what's frustrating also on Power BI is you would get like you have to open it up and then manually refresh it, and it's not a like a thing, but the results that come out of there, they are wonderful once it has been refreshed. So you can actually go there and then just click on refresh all, and then it will get refreshed. Or you can the way that I set it up here, there we go, the way that I've set it up here, like I said, it's a third option that doesn't, if you had only one cube, you would just have one source here, which is a cube. But because I have different tables and different scripts that are supplying to this information, so I have an opportunity to refresh one. So one thing will just open up there and then just refresh. If the problem is on the taxonomy, so I can have the taxonomy just refreshing, or I can have click and refresh everything, and then after that, then I publish and I send it out. Or I can come online here, which is mostly what I would like to do. Go online and then set up the refresh online so that it refreshes automatically. Even though I'm drinking coffee and doing stuff, it can still refresh itself automatically at the back So I think that's what I like to do. But there's a problem with everything, and the problem might be when the automatic online thing doesn't work out. It doesn't refresh or it doesn't do anything. Then you sit in there and you look like a fool, and then you become like crazy. Oh, I'm just thinking about it now. The nice thing about setting up your SSIS like this is, as part of my request, I was only asked to do something else that's impacted by this one. So you don't have to run the whole thing, you don't have to run the whole SSIS. You can just right click and say execute only this portion, and that's what I did. Once it becomes green, then I'm gonna go to Power BI. The reason why I also set up Power BI in this manner is I can just go to Power BI and only refresh the data that's related to this portion, not to all these other portions, because I'm not changing the date. The date column will remain the same. I'm not changing probably headcount. Headcount will remain the same, but I'm changing a classification that relates to something else, something quite small. So I don't have to delay people, with the whole thing. Well, I know that I only need something that's small inside here. So I think it's not important for you as an analyst manager to know the detail, but I quite like to know the nitty-gritty, so that it can help me estimate how long will it take for the team to, for anybody to do the task. If you don't, for my side is, if you are caught up into the nitty-gritty, you will then become a technical specialist. But if you just know them in high level, to say the whole process takes 30 minutes, for instance, that's 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 20 minutes. If you run them concurrently like this, that's 30 minutes. But if you run them individually, that will be maybe an hour or 2 hours. Just knowing that, so that when you know that there's a problem on this pipeline and that pipeline, you can just run them together concurrently, and it becomes easy. There's the green, so I can stop this and I can go back to my friend over here, and then let's stop that. Why am I refreshing here? So instead of going back to my friend and worrying about the whole so like I said here, let me show you. So I have a table here that talks about accounts. I have a table that talks about adjusted transfer pricing, headcount, whatever, all of those. None of those things is broken in this case. The only thing else that's broken, it's here. Classification is on this side, and I'm only gonna refresh that. Come in here, have a look at what the classification looks like. If I'm happy what the classification looks like, then I can push it into the cloud so that they can start consuming it. But it just shows the number of rows that are being pulled in. And once I get all the rows that have been pulled in and I'm happy with that, then I can rock and roll. Your report is done. Send an SMS or send a Teams message to say done. Just like that. Day in a life of Senior Financial Business Analyst. It's a lot of time analyzing data to derive meaning. Once you have analyzed data to derive meaning, then comes the meeting. Take people through your findings. It could go either way. They could be excited, or they can poke more questions into your analysis. That's where I ended up, this report that I have over about 54 pages. If you're thinking about PowerPoint slide, a dynamic PowerPoint slide that you can interrogate, having 50 slides on a PowerPoint slide, that in each slide, when you put on the slide, you can select to say, give me by person, by month, by whatever, and you go to the next slide. Oh, this one is about whatever the thing is, by person, by month, by what. Having 50 slides means it's a big report. So it's a big way of making use of a cube. It's quite exciting, but like I said, when you go into meetings, people could be quite excited if you gave them something that they have never, thought about before. Or they could be mean if you are exposing them, or if you are doing something that their team is doing. That's where the mean side of things come in, because they are protecting their territory.